Tonight, a 31-year-old man charged over a spree of random stabbing attacks across Melbourne. Also ahead, 8 people admitted to hospital in a critical condition from suspected drug overdoses after attending a Melbourne festival. Queensland told storm recovery will take years as Victoria braces for floods from a massive downpour. And tennis star Rafael Nadal pulls out of the Australian Open after suffering a muscle tear during his comeback at the Brisbane International. Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Mariam Saab. A man has been charged with a number of alleged offences following a string of stabbings across Melbourne's inner suburbs overnight that left multiple people in hospital. Arrested in the early hours of this morning, the 31-year-old is facing 14 assault charges and 1 charge of possessing a controlled weapon. Police say that in a 3-hour period, 5 people were stabbed in 4 separate and random attacks. The violence is not believed to be terror-related.
A normal Saturday night turns into a random stabbing spree across Melbourne. In one incident, security footage captures the suspect in a green hoodie approaching a male bystander before stabbing him in the leg.
It's pretty terrifying, to think that something like a random attack like that as well, so close to home.
When I arrived this morning to open up, there was always blood on the pavement.
Victoria Police labelling the events as extremely concerning.
On each occasion, the victims were minding their own business. They wouldn't have even known that they were about to be attacked.
Police say a 31-year-old Melton man allegedly stabbed 5 people in 4 separate locations across Melbourne, all within 3 hours of each other. One of the victims, a 31-year-old woman, sustained life-threatening injuries. She's in a serious but stable condition in hospital. The others suffered knife injuries to their legs and torsos. The attacker was finally caught by police in South Yarra just after 1 o'clock this morning. He was found with a bag of sharp weapons.
1:30 last night, I was woken up by a loud screaming noise from a male voice. Someone was screaming, "Stand still, put your hands by your side."
Police say it was concerning that the man used public transport to get to each location, but onboard CCTV was used to locate him. And although terrorism has been ruled out, his motive for the alleged offending is still unknown.
Our brothers with the PSOs as well, without the support that we had from them riding the train network, I guess this could potentially be resulting in me appealing for a manhunt.
The 31-year-old man was charged this afternoon with 14 separate assault-related charges and 1 charge of possessing a controlled weapon. He's been remanded in custody and will face court tomorrow. Courtney Withers, ABC News, Melbourne.
8 people who attended a Melbourne music festival on Saturday are in a critical condition from suspected drug overdose. Mobile intensive care paramedics working at the Hard Mission Festival in Flemington treated the patients at the site before they were taken to hospital. A spokesperson for the Victoria Ambulance Union says they appeared to have overdosed or had a reaction to an MDMA derivative drug. 7 of the patients have been placed into induced comas and require breathing tubes. The spokesperson says it's a high level of treatment reserved for the most critical of patients. Large parts of Victoria are being drenched by a significant rain band that's making its way east across the state. A number of severe weather warnings are in place for flash flooding and for damaging thunderstorms, with authorities predicting up to 200 millimetres forecast to fall in some locations. Michael Oregon reports from the State Control Centre.
This weather event is well underway across Victoria. Already we've had significant amounts of rainfall. The SES has had more than 300 calls for assistance today, mainly around flash flooding across Victoria. And as I said, a significant amount of rain has already fallen today. Places like Bendigo in central Victoria has seen a lot of rainfall. Homes and roads are already being inundated. Other towns such as Shepparton, Kerrang, Seymour, they've also seen substantial amounts of rainfall already. already, and these communities as well, and communities right across Victoria have been sandbagging for the last 24 to 48 hours in preparation for more rainfall that is going to fall over the coming hours. Right now there are a number of severe weather warnings in place across in the west of the state, in places like Warrnambool and Hamilton. There are watch and act alerts for severe thunderstorms that are right now impacting those areas, and there are flood watch warnings that are in place for most river catchments in the north and the northeast of Victoria, as well as for regions around Melbourne because of this rainfall that's coming.
And Mike, how's the State Control Centre expected to be managing these forecasts overnight?
Well, they're monitoring a much more volatile system which is entering Victorian airspace from the north, from New South Wales and from South Australia right now. It's impacting the northwest of the state, areas around Mildura, and that system is bringing with it the really damaging thunderstorms, in some instances hail and significant rain, and that is expected to move right across the entire state of Victoria and particularly hit the north and the northeast into Gippsland over the next 24 to 48 hours, and there will be significant rainfall. The Bureau has predicted in some places could receive between 100 and 200 millimetres of rain over the next 24 hours, and that of course will have ramifications. I spoke with the SES, the Victorian SES, a short time ago. Take a listen.
We have got a stronger front coming through following this, which will have the storms, and that'll impact particularly through the central parts of Victoria overnight tonight and into tomorrow. That's going to be resulting in flash flooding in most areas. In the 24 hours after that, we're then expecting some riverine rises.
So it's important to note as well that many of these catchments across Victoria in the north and the northeast of the state are already very sodden after a few weeks of wild and wet weather to start the summer. So overnight, some really significant and severe weather will roll across Victoria. The message from authorities is, of course, steer clear of floodwaters, make sure you're across the warnings and batten down the hatches. Mariam?
Thank you, Mike Lorrigan there reporting from the Victorian State Control Centre. The Queensland Premier has conceded the massive recovery from southeast Queensland storms may take years. Almost all power has been restored to homes in the Scenic Rim and Gold Coast, with remaining residents there expected to be back on the grid tonight. Stephen Miles has praised the response from emergency services and from the community.
Juice Walton has lived in the Scenic Rim for 25 years. He spent his birthday picking up the pieces of his demolished home.
All of this road basically been cleared just by us. So it's just been a nightmare.
He's now sleeping in a bus on his property after he was told power wouldn't be restored anytime soon.
They actually said to me this morning, there's no record of me being here. And I said to them, well, how come I've been paying power bills for 25 years?
With 99% of the power grid connected in southeast Queensland, crews are still working tirelessly on the ground to reconnect the last households. Authorities have warned the cleanup is far from over.
It's true, recovering from this disaster, particularly when it comes to those severely damaged and destroyed households, that's going to take years.
Many residents in the southeast feel they've been left in the dark.
It's almost a little bit like a nightmare, I guess.
Alex Williams and his family have been without power since Christmas night. They were forced to move out of their rented Upper Coomera home.
I can't live here. There's no running water, there's no power still. Essentially, the house is sort of unlivable.
From tomorrow afternoon, 2 forms of financial assistance will be made available to residents. The first is a one-off payment to support those who've suffered injury or damage to their homes, while a disaster recovery allowance will help those who have been unable to work.
Some people we know have found it difficult to get to their work because of road damage or debris.
But many say without power and internet, they haven't been able to access support.
My wife's been told about them, but we've got no internet, we've got nothing.
A grim outlook as the cleanup continues. Jay Bowman, ABC News, Upper Coomera.
A man has been arrested following a house fire in southern New South Wales that left his mother with severe burns. Emergency services were called to a home in Bribberry near Young early this afternoon. Police say that they were responding to a report on the woman's welfare.
The report was a house that was on fire and a 65-year-old female that was injured. On arrival, police found a 65-year-old woman suffering life-threatening burns.
A teenager also suffered burns and was taken to a nearby hospital. The woman has been airlifted to Royal North Shore Hospital in Sydney and remains in a critical condition. Police believe that she's a victim of domestic violence. Her 42-year-old son was arrested in Parkes late this afternoon after a public appeal to help find him. And if this story has raised any issues for you, you can get help by calling the National Sexual Assault and Family Violence Counselling Helpline on 1800-RESPECT, which is 1800 737 732. Police are investigating a brawl at the Summernats Festival in Canberra involving patrons and some people wearing crowd safety vests. The incident happened yesterday afternoon and videos have since spread across social media. Organisers are stressing that it's just one blip on an otherwise successful festival which wrapped up today.
Not what you'd expect to hear from crowd control. It seemed to start with this punch. Some patrons threw cans and bottles and the crowd readied for a fight. Later on, a colleague joins the man in the red hat. Festival goers watch on, capturing the brawl from multiple angles. Moments later, another crowd safety officer kicks a man lying on the ground. Security at the festival were privately contracted and the ABC has contacted the company for comment. Police are yet to lay any charges. Festival organisers are also investigating.
It's our responsibility to make sure that everyone that comes here gets to go home safe and happy. When that doesn't happen, we also need to look at that really carefully too.
But they're keen to stress it was an isolated incident.
We had a plan that we'd worked out really carefully all year. Should something like that happen, we implemented it and resolved the issue.
The brawl threatened to overshadow the final day of Summernats. Queenslander Joe Bauer was named the festival's grand champion for his restoration of a 1968 Dodge Charger he brought out from Texas.
Yeah, unveiled here on Thursday. And to take out People's Choice and the Grand Champion, man, it's just unbelievable for me.
And last night, crowd favourite Andrew Lynch took out the Burnout competition. A sight, sound and smell Canberrans can again look forward to this time next year. Patrick Bell, ABC News, Canberra.
The Palestinian Health Ministry says an Israeli airstrike has killed 6 Palestinians in the occupied West Bank. Israel says that its aircraft fired on Palestinian militants who had attacked troops in the city of Jenin, and one of its troops had been killed. However, the Palestinian ministry says the strike targeted people who had gathered at the site, and eyewitnesses say that it occurred as Israeli forces were withdrawing. Meanwhile, the Israeli army says it's dismantled Hamas's command structure in northern parts of Gaza. The Israel Defence Forces say they're now focusing on central and southern parts of the Strip amid UN warnings that Gaza has become a place of death and despair. A woman in her 90s has been found alive under rubble almost a week after a devastating earthquake struck Japan. It's a rare story of hope for the country. More than 120 people have been confirmed dead and 200 are still missing as the weather now makes it even more difficult for rescuers.
They call it miraculous. 5 days after the earthquake hit central Japan, rescuers save a woman in her 90s. She was pulled alive from her collapsed home on the coast of Noto Peninsula. Hope has been fading for most, but there have been a number of people saved in recent days. In this one, another elderly woman is pulled to safety after a tricky operation. The workers called to her, assuring her she was now okay. Here in Wajima, the Japanese army has swung into action on the ground. These villages were cut off by landslides and their roads split after the magnitude 7.6 quake struck on New Year's Day. The area 300 kilometres northwest of Tokyo has been one of the hardest hit. 30 people were safely evacuated and more are waiting to leave. There are still around 200 people unaccounted for. This man explains the layout of his collapsed house to the search team. He believes his wife is trapped inside. Thousands of homes have been damaged or destroyed. This family is picking through the rubble for anything they can salvage. Survivors are making do, but this peninsula community also copped a 2-metre high tsunami, and elderly residents fear they'll never get back to their own homes.
We'll have to stay at a shelter with everyone else for about 3 months or more. And then for 2 or 3 years, we'll live in temporary accommodation. And I'm already over 80.
The weather isn't helping rescue and aid efforts. There's been heavy rain on and off and now hail and snow, prompting fears of further landslides, which will make it even harder to reach isolated communities. Kathleen Calderwood, ABC News, Wajima.
US authorities have temporarily grounded at least 171 Boeing planes after an accident on an Alaska Airlines Boeing 737 MAX 9 when part of the aircraft blew off during its ascent on Friday. According to airport officials, one person was taken to hospital, but no serious injuries were reported after the plane made an emergency landing in Oregon.
This is why more than 170 planes have been grounded in the United States. A gaping hole in the aircraft as part of the fuselage is blown out of this Alaskan Airlines jet just after takeoff from Portland.
We need everyone to remain seated with their seat right now. Sit down.
The pilot recorded speaking to air traffic control.
Yes, we are emergency. We are depressurized. We do need to return back.
There was thankfully no one seated near the window.
Passengers were terrified.
It was a trip from hell. There was a kid in that row who his shirt was sucked off him and out of the plane, and his mother was holding on to him to make sure he didn't go with it.
I look up and the oxygen masks were hanging from the ceiling. And then I look to my left and there's this huge chunk, part of the airplane, just like missing.
The plane was forced into an emergency landing, but remarkably, all 177 people on board survived, with no major injuries reported. But it could have been deadly, and the US regulator has ordered 171 of the Boeing 737 MAX 9s to be grounded and tested before they fly again.
One of the questions here for the investigators is going to be, was that a mechanical failure or was that some failure in maintenance?
Had the aircraft been at cruising altitude, maybe more passengers would have unbuckled their belt, and then certainly there would have been a risk of loss of life with passengers potentially able to be sucked out of the aircraft.
It's a new blow for Boeing's MAX family of jets. The entire fleet was grounded in 2019 for 20 months after 2 air disasters of the MAX 8 model. In Indonesia, a Lion airplane crashed, killing 189 people. Then, an Ethiopian Airlines plane plunged into the ground minutes after takeoff. All 157 on board died. The latest incident could prove costly for Boeing, which has struggled under huge amounts of debt in recent years. Carrington Clark, ABC News, Washington.
If you've spent your Sunday hitting the shops, you probably haven't given much thought to a time when that wasn't possible. But weekend trading in Australia is largely thanks to a hardware store owner who went to jail so that he could open up. Frank Penhall is now in his 80s and is preparing to sell his Melbourne store as several states continue to resist longer opening hours.
What time do you start this morning?
7 o'clock. This man and this shop are etched in Australian history.
I'm not a person for backing down. I have a mind of my own.
In the 1980s, Frank Penhall opened his hardware store on weekends, racking up huge fines by breaking laws that restricted trading hours.
No, I won't pay a cent. Under arrest, Mr. Penhall. You come with no choice.
Sent to one of the nation's toughest prisons, he spent nearly 3 weeks inside.
I've proved I can stand this place for 19 days. Next time I can take it for 19 weeks, 19 months, 19 years, or 190 years.
But it didn't take that long.
Any law which comes between you as a customer and me as a shopkeeper is an ass of a law.
A changing mood and other rebel traders joining the fight forced the Victorian government to open up trading hours.
Change the damn law and open it up for everyone.
Which spread to other states and territories.
There's no doubt that Frank in the retail industry is an absolute legend.
There might be 7 days in a week, but around 1/3 of trading for discretionary items like clothing is done on the weekend. And Western Australia, South Australia and Queensland have more restrictive trading hours than other states.
Shopping is really Australia's favourite sport, so regulating trading hours in today's modern world does simply not make sense.
Now 82, Frank is preparing to sell his hardware store, reflecting on a fight that changed how we work and play.
I would like things to be different, but I wouldn't do anything different, Dan.
Daniel Ziffer, ABC News, Melbourne.
Rafael Nadal is out of the Australian Open tennis tournament after suffering a torn muscle and opting to return home to Spain for treatment. The 37-year-old took to social media to announce the news, revealing that an MRI had shown that he suffered a micro tear. Nadal received treatment during a 3.5-hour match in Brisbane on Friday night when he lost in 3 sets to Australia's Jordan Thompson. He was just 3 matches into his return from a 12-month layoff where he needed surgery for a hip injury. And Australia has its first men's player inside the world's top 10 in 17 years after Alex de Minaur fought back from a set down to defeat Alexander Zverev at the United Cup. The 24-year-old will next head to Melbourne Park. He's hoping for a run at his home Grand Slam.
3 straight top 10 ranked opponents, 3 straight wins for the Demon.
And there it is. De Minaur does it for Australia.
The 24-year-old dropped the first set against Germany's world number 7, Alexander Zverev, but in trademark fashion, never lost hope.
He's lifted, he's asking the crowd to lift with him.
The win propels him into the top 10 ahead of next week's Australian Open. His best result, the 4th round.
It's what I worked so hard for. It's another milestone, but it doesn't finish there. Job's not done.
His United Cup coach and mentor, Leighton Hewitt, was the last Aussie man to hold a place inside the world's top 10 back in July 2006.
I see all the reasons why I'm not going to be a good player, I'm not going to make it, I'm not going to improve, and I saw it in the back of my head and I used it as motivation.
In Brisbane, it was one-way traffic in the women's final.
Putting on a clinic.
Arina Sabalenka had won 15 straight matches in Australia, including last year's Grand Slam title.
Well, Sabalenka had started walking to the chair. She'd given up on that point.
But it took her 9 games today to even get on the board.
Sabalenka breaks.
24-year-old Rybakina sought revenge for last year's Oz Open final loss in their head-to-head battle.
A masterclass. Elena Rybakina, the Brisbane International champion.
I really enjoy playing you, no matter the result. As I said, we always push each other, which is great, I think.
Chasing his first title since 2017, Grigor Dimitrov is off to a solid start against top seed Holger Rune in the men's final.
There's the set. Dimitrov. First blood to Grigor Dimitrov.
Jessica Stewart, ABC News.
Bulgaria's Grigor Dimitrov has made the perfect start to his Australian Open campaign, winning the Brisbane International. Dimitrov was challenged by world number 8 20-year-old Holger Rune, the first set going to a tie-break. The second set was easier, Dimitrov winning 7-6, 6-4 to claim his first title since 2017. The Socceroos have turned up for the start of next week's Asian Cup with a 2-0 victory over Bahrain in Abu Dhabi. An own goal from a Craig Goodwin cross put Australia in the lead at half-time, and Goodwin provided again as he nodded across goal for Mitch Duke to score. The win is a confidence builder for Graham Arnold's side, and that's ahead of their Asian Cup opener against India on Saturday night. Australia is aiming to win the tournament for the second time in their history. The Sydney Sixers have moved to second place on the Big Bash ladder with a comfortable 7-wicket win over the Melbourne Stars. The Stars batted first at the MCG and reached 4 for 156. Spinner Todd Murphy restricted the hosts' total, taking 2 wickets from 4 overs. A knock of 79 from English opener James Vince and 41 from Daniel Hughes steered the Sixers to victory with 11 balls to spare. It also ended the Stars' 4-game winning streak.
Yeah, it's cliche, but you want to peak at the back end of the competition. As you say, it's felt stop-start from a playing point of view with a big gap early on and then some rain-affected games. So hopefully we've saved our best cricket for the back end.
On the satellite, a trough is generating showers and thunderstorms over Western Australia's north, the Northern Territory, South Australia, Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland's west and north. On the synoptic, a high-pressure system is keeping Tasmania and Western Australia's south dry, while troughs are keeping the interior and western parts of the country hot. Looking around the nation for tomorrow next, in Queensland, very warm in the east, hot in the west and showers in the southeast and west. In New South Wales and the ACT, showers and storms in the west, warm in the east and mostly cloudy in the northeast. In Victoria, showers throughout the state, heavy in the northeast and cool to mild in the southwest. In Tasmania, mild to warm in the northern parts of the state, showers clearing in the southwest and mild in the southeast. In South Australia, showers throughout the state, mostly cloudy in central parts, cool to mild in the west and north. In Western Australia, windy in the northwest, showers in the northeast and sunny for the rest of the state. In the Northern Territory, it'll be mostly sunny in the south, very warm in the top end and showers and thunderstorms in Arnhem. Looking ahead to Tuesday's forecast for our capital cities, possible showers in Brisbane, showers clearing for Sydney, a high chance of afternoon showers in Canberra. Melbourne and Hobart will be mostly sunny, Adelaide mostly sunny, a hot day in Perth and possible thunderstorms in Darwin with a top of 33. And that's the latest from ABC News. Keep up to date with us at news.abc.net.au and on ABC iView. I'm Mariam Saab. Coming up next for you is Compass. Stay with us.
Leadership